Hey, what's going on, Gio Oliva? Thanks for joining, man.
I'll forgive you for bastardizing my last name, but you won't be the first or the last, my friend.
Well, how'd you say it? Let's say it right.
Oliva,
Oliva,
Giovanni Oliva, yeah.
Giovanni Oliva. Listen, I should know that because you're not just a guest on this podcast from here on out. Like you're basically going to be a host. You're a distro boss. You're a fellow distro boss. You've been in. We've done a lot of work together throughout the years on multiple projects, but also you kind of worked in like many of the same spheres, industries over the course of your life's experience. I mean, you're originally like British, and this is really just me. So I know all this. But I'm going to say I'm going to ask these questions really for the benefit of whoever's listening, to get an understanding of who you are, because really we've been joined at the hip in many different ways, and we're going to be doing a lot together going forward. And you're going to be a host on this platform too, the Distro Boss podcast. So why don't you give like a quick little, I guess, backstory as to like where your skills are derived, because you are a mean sales machine. If there's one, there's not many people I can say that about. I've had plenty of sales floors. With lots of different salespeople. I've had inside salespeople, and I've had external too. But I have to say, and the reason why you are here with me right now, and we're going to be pushing this platform forward, is because you have done exceedingly well in your career. So why don't you take it away and give us some background?
Sure, yeah. Well, just to touch on kind of our, I suppose, past being aligned. When I read I'm halfway through your book, as you know, but the first part when you kind of explained all the projects that you'd worked on, I mean, minus one of them, I've been down that same path. So, look, I think we're all in sales, aren't we? I know that's cliche to say it, but we're all in it. I've been a lifer in it. I've been 25 years. Well, I'm 45 now. So actually started when I was 15. So, my math is not as good as my selling by the looks of it. But ultimately, over the years, you learn a skill set and you improve upon it, and you realize that when you get good at the art of persuading, and it really actually probably the worst term to use, persuading, because it's not persuading, right? We know that it's the other way. It's understanding a need, understanding the client. When you get good at pulling that out of them and helping them persuade themselves, for want of a better term, you realize that you can turn it into money. You can turn it into a living for yourself and an investment. So I've been in sales, as I say, for forever, and it's a lifelong journey. You're always learning. There's sometimes you perform better and sometimes you can have lulls, but when you get good at something, you learn to step out of it and self-analyze and fix the things that you can get wrong because you get stuck in a little rut or whatever it is that gets you out of a good groove. And and this brought us back together. And now we want to help people that are a few chapters behind us, right? There's always people in front of us. We know that. And we pay these people for information and coaching. And I'm a big believer in that. And I think timing's everything. And we reconnected and the path is right there for us, buddy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you talk about like you mentioned like persuading. Then like I've always likened like sales. I said whenever I've like had my sales teams in house, and I've always said like make no mistake, like sales is manipulation. There's just like white hat manipulation and black hat manipulation. There's things where you're doing something, you're telling somebody why they should have something, why they should buy something, right? You're giving them reasons, rationale, logical cases of why they should be buying the thing that you're selling. Now, of course, if it's a bad thing, then it's black hat. If it's a good thing, then it's white hat. But make no mistake, I always say this, you are in the business of manipulation. But that's just one angle. That's just one lens to look at it. I think everyone has their way of kind of understanding it and justifying it. But I think exactly as you said, like there are people like chapters behind us. We're not necessarily the best out there, but we've done a lot. Sold in the millions, and over the course, I mean, we could say hundreds of millions of our careers. And when it comes to like the different sectors as well, like we brushed over like the background as to like what industries we've been involved with. You've got things like alternative investments, you've got real estate, commercial real estate, like the typical multifamily stuff, hotels, and then you go into like further like different things like I said, the alternative investments. Not everyone knows what alternative investments are, but we're talking about precious metals, precious gems, like gold investments. I know you're
A
in.
good simple way to explain it is it's unregulated, right? Where versus the other side of the fence is Wall Street, and there's a lot of regulation. But before we go any further, I just want to clear something up with the manipulation part of it, because I think that is a strong word to use. Where the confusion is, we have to push people at times. That's where good sales understand. Manipulation, no. It's about pushing people, and there's nothing wrong with pushing people if you know it's good for them. Manipulating is
It's
not
got bad connotations.
Yeah.
It sounds bad. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you know where I
bad.
got that from? I got that from this book. It's actually right behind me. It's right there. Actionable gamification. It's actually, I want to pull it up later. He has like this whole section on it, like on the understanding manipulation from a gamification standpoint. It's like manipulation is everywhere. So he did a really good job. This is a book by UK Chow, really cool book. And he was like, you have to like be okay with it and understand what the true definition of the word manipulation means. And he kind of breaks it down. So it is easy when I just say it like that. It just sounds bad because it does.
It's happening every day. We're bombarded with ads as soon as we wake up. Instagram, all social media, TV. I mean, they're the masters of manipulation, if you want to call it that. They've been doing it for years and years to get us to buy their products, right? So
it's all gamified.
Human behavior. And
it's all gamified. Even if you look at the way like things are being sold today, like we were just discussing this before this call. Like, I've got a huge database full of leads that I've accumulated over the course of the years with the AIM market, alternative investments. So, and actually, I'll quickly touch on alternative investments. Right? You said unregulated. It's really weird, right? Because the unregulated stuff, supposedly, that should be considered alternatives. We're talking about real estate here for the most part. We're commercial property. Physical assets like gold, other precious metals. And these are the unregulated. It's interesting where, you think that these should be the grounding investments, and that the regulated stuff, which is kind of the stuff that's fed to you by the banks, which are these like funds, ETFs, that kind of stuff. They're the ones that are regulated. They're the ones that are considered the primaries. Like those are the things that have been made up. Those are the things that have been pulled out of the sky.
Well, they make it so intricate, and most people, for the most part, don't understand them. They don't understand annuities or derivatives. But Wall Street have been very, very good at making these things and making themselves seem overly intelligent, so that there's a need to have to go there, in essence, right? But when you look at the wealthy and the uber rich, these people own real estate and they own businesses. They own real assets, because when this shit goes wrong, inflated stock markets, inflated real estate prices, right? Because real estate's got two parts. It's got a hard asset part, the ground underneath it, and then it has the improvement, the building, and then the debt, right? So depending on how that's structured, it could be more physical asset versus paper asset, if that makes sense. But anyhow, to go back to what happens in the bubble, all this free money in the last few years, cheap money, it flows typically to Wall Street and real estate, right? People buy more homes, and then people invest in more stock. That inflates it. Therein lies the bubble. That always bursts. When it does, it goes to real assets. That's where the wealthy get richer, typically in the down market, right? And the middle class, if there's such a thing anymore, they go up with a roller coaster, down with and it on goes that cycle. That's why you see people working in their 80s, right? Because they didn't invest in real assets when they should have done. Yeah. Not that this is investment advice, right?
No, not this. but that's generally like, it's not investment advice. But so when you, as a salesperson, when you're evaluating whether or not you're going to sell an option, like whether it's gold or real estate or any other kind of investment class, you have to understand these things. And to understand it is your ability to sell it, to really explain it simply, to the potential prospects. So this isn't really advice. This is really just you understanding what the market does, how things are set up. And I think as a salesperson, we have to self-educate a lot. But in the process of trying to sell something, you end up learning. You end up learning a hell of a lot too. And so you can eventually, you can't call it like qualified advice perhaps, but in your own personal circles, it's good advice because you've done enough research. Plus you've been on the sell side of it. You're not an investor looking for an option here to put your money. You're like, I've worked for tons of different option like companies where some of them have been a bit shady. Some of them have been really fantastic for investors. But as a salesperson, you're kind of just jumping from job to job, hoping that the umbrella that you're under is actually a good one. and that you can promote a very good investment, option to people.
Yeah,
and in
but when
doing
you
that,
look
you
at,
learn.
yeah, sorry, man. I was just going to mention about that. In that distribution channel of those alternatives, you've got thousands of these sales companies, and because you built an amazing distribution channel supplying the investment, which are individual parties. Let's call them. It could be developers. It could be whatever the project is. There's a level of due diligence you can do, but you're still not in control of that real estate, how they take on the money and how they deploy that capital, how they manage it. That's part of the risk. So the sales floors, they've got to present that information through the documents, and then the investor's job is to understand it, do their due diligence, get it fact checked, and have other eyes look at it if necessary, and then make a decision going in. But once you give your money to somebody, they've got to return it. They've got to obviously do the right thing with it, and that's where the risk lies in these alternatives. If they're not active in the investment, these are passive investments, right? So there's always going to be a risk if someone else is taking the money and actively investing it. So I think a lot of people don't understand that going in. Right?
Yeah.
But that's where
Absolutely.
the problem lies, right? Because there's good developers and bad developers. Just look at the south of Spain in its heyday, right?
Yeah, like there's a lot of like off-plan properties being sold and then never being built. And this stuff happens, right? But all the paperwork's in check. You look at the legal, you look at like some like the legal frameworks that they're like built under. You think everything's good, so. And then maybe you find out about some other like prominent people who've invested. So by proxy, you're kind of like, conditioned to invest too, because you think it's safe. There's so many different things that can fall in. I mean, there's things that like trigger buying habits, right? That get people to initially want to buy. And you've got like the frenzy, it's going to run out of availability soon, or such and such has just bought it. You don't want to miss out. Like there's all these different triggers that can get people to buy. And then, if it's all built up, if it's all like built on top of a really good project where it looks good, the legals look good, the plan looks great, they've got a fantastic architect in there. If we're looking at property, for instance, and you've got like industry analysis about like the local area, like there's like train links coming in, there's flights coming in, there's population increasing, the value of the neighborhood's going up, the asset's going to go through the roof in the next couple of years. Everything kind of looks good, and you think it's a hands-off asset-backed investment in that case. It's very easy to make a decision if you've got money burning a hole in your pocket, and that happens to a lot. And I've been on the sales side of lots of these kind of companies as a salesperson, as a sales. You sometimes you're not even an investment broker; you're just a marketer. You're just taking a brochure from a property developer and promoting it.
To speak to those real estate projects as well, especially ground up, right? The ground up off plan. Opportunities. Now, that's very different than you buying a stabilized asset that's kicking off income, for example, right? Finished product, whether it's commercial or residential. And the return is very different. So when you're buying off plan, you can make 25, 50%, whatever. But with that comes more risk. So there's got to be, both sides have got to know that. Investors going in have to understand, if you're going to chase big profits like that, you've got to be prepared for it to go wrong, because it's very different than that asset being stabilized, completed, and actually kicking off cash flow.
That's where you're going to get the big margin.
Risk, exactly. So,
but the safe option would be to like jump on a train that's already moving, i.e., you pick up a multifamily development that's already been around for the last 20 years, 98% occupied. You now buy it because the owner wants to sell for a tax benefit or whatever, and then so you're now jumping on. You've now got a buy and hold strategy, and you've just got to have a management company in place. I mean, there's lots of people that run that kind of a model, and that one works because it's less risk, but the margins aren't as high.
Exactly.
But it's established, and so it's a good place to safeguard money when you buy into something. So that's the sell side from the alternative investment side. But then there's also like the distribution side, which I'm big on, because I got out of like the direct selling into building up the network. So finding the people, places, and things that already had access to the customer groups that I was trying to sell to. So I'd match myself with a product, a property, or some kind of a product. Whether sometimes it was even just like I'd sold rubber, like raw material from China through distribution agents who would sell that rubber to manufacturers in Turkey, and we would make money on the forex conversion. So we'd actually sell the rubber at cost to the manufacturers in Turkey. We'd make money to secure that deal, we'd make money on the forex, so
Right.
the currency exchange.
Yeah.
So we'd collect a few pips off that. So if anyone understands trading, the FX markets, you can understand what 3 or 4 points on that would do. So you're making, especially when you're looking at numbers like 50 to $100 million worth of rubber.
Makes sense.
It's a lot, right? And so we're able to undercut everybody else because we're not charging a fee. Essentially, it's just to convert. We're making money on the conversion, and then that goes into the manufacturers in Turkey, and then we then charge an additional fee for getting that rubber that's been turned into these sort of templates for like shoe soles, to be sold into like American companies in America, like Skechers, for instance, who'll turn them into their sneakers and that kind of stuff. So I've been involved in that side, and I guess I kind of grew out of inside sales into like leveraging other businesses, places that already had access to customers, and that's kind of the direction I went. And I know that you stayed predominantly with the bigger established sort of built businesses where you start selling, you've led teams and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's actually, I think, a good thing for you to maybe share with the listeners is the transition, because a lot of people go through, they become good at selling, right? And they become high performers. Now, if you're trading your time for money, there's only so many hours in the day, and that's not running a business. Where do you make that shift to, from production to actually ownership, where you're leveraging human capital? Can you maybe speak to that a little bit, that your shift where you went from the sales side of it over to the ownership side, and kind of that journey? I think that would be powerful to understand, because I think a lot of people
absolutely
right?
Because I mean, that's the thing about being a salesperson. It's like in one sense, you kind of class yourself as like a mercenary at some point, because you're like this middleman. Like you're like, I'll go to any company that has something to sell, provided of course
you're a hired gun, man. You're a hired gun.
Yeah, you're a hired gun. If you got something to sell and the commissions are there, I can make money selling this thing. Now, that's basically me taking care of my supply side. That's how I kind of looked at it. Like whatever company I go to, if they've got something good to sell, I'll sell it, provided, of course, I can make good commissions. My supply side's taken care of. Now I've got to think of my sales side. Okay, so how am I going to get the leads? Do they have a good setup for like inbound leads? Do I have to find the leads myself? Do I have to do the old business development lead gen thing where I have to, build this out myself? And a lot of companies, to be honest with you, they'll say they have a lot of inbound leads, but 9 times out of 10, you work for a company, you're sitting there having to, scrape the leads together yourself. You're having to build your own list of potential prospects. And then you realize very quickly, why do I need to be here in this company where if I'm generating all the potential leads, I'm finding where all the money is. Yeah. And now I'm going to just sell the thing that you have, when I could really be selling something else to these people that would pay me more money. And that's when I started to have that realization that, I am this centerpiece, right? I am the middle. I'm the bottleneck here, because without the leads, that thing doesn't get sold. And without that thing available, I've got nothing to sell to those leads. So really, I have a choice here. I can set up my own sell side and I can create my own buy side. So my supply side and sales side, sorry. So what I started to do was look at kind of like the mercenary analogy, right? I'd start looking at other businesses. Instead of looking for employment, I would look to see if I could if I could incorporate by saying, hey, look, if I brought you a customer on a silver platter, how much would you pay me for selling that thing? And so then companies would start saying, we'll pay you, 20%, 30%. And I'd negotiate higher, because I'd always say things like, you're not paying me a base salary. I want to have like company level commissions here. So I want what's considered to be an agent level commission. This is a joint venture type of agreement. So I'd start securing that kind of a commission. Now, the good thing after that is I have a product. I haven't had to build a product, but I do have a product or an offer to sell. Now I have a choice. Do I want to sell it under their brand, or do I want to sell it under my brand? You see, because if I'm selling real estate, maybe I want to sell something complementary to real estate, like something that will sell alongside that. So a commercial property, perhaps alongside, it could be as simple as something like single family, right? So it could just be like residential and commercial combined. It could be, if I'm selling multiple, if I work for a gold company selling gold, it could be another precious metal, or even go into precious gems, complementary products that could be offered. So I could now start running that under my own brand. So, hey, presto, set up your own website. You get your agreements in place. This is how you know you're going to be paid. This is where you've papered the deal. This is your contract. And then the next job is to go find leads. And finding leads was no different. You see, I realized that it was no different than working from within a company. The process was the same. You start putting ads out. You start building your lead lists.
What are your thoughts on this before I forget? Because I think that I've seen, and again, I don't have anything to back this up other than my own observations. But we're living in this world where it used to be there's an expert for everything, and there was always, especially I've had it going into different sales channels, become an expert, and there's power in a niche or niche, depending who's listening. Yeah,
To our American audience, niche.
Yeah.
To our European niche.
So, but then the way the world's going, and I'm seeing a lot of this stuff from some of the people that I follow online about, the ease of, let's say you got, my typical customer for the business I'm in is retiree age, right? They have concerns over the safety of their retirement. They have concerns over the next 20, 30 years, right? And they typically will own a lot of real estate. They're baby boomers, right? They own most of the real estate in America, okay, as a group. They own most of the small, medium, SME businesses in America as a group. And these people, rather than them having a broker for the real estate, this for that, and 20 different people, the headache of that is obviously painful. But for them to have, say, one guy that covers X amount of things for them, so offering different specializations. So I'm seeing a lot of shift in people building their skill sets out vertically and getting more things to offer. For example, there's a commercial guy that I follow. He's really got this big push of, maybe he's a guy we can get on the podcast. In fact, he is. This guy's awesome. Really pushing he does business funding, right? Commercial and business funding. And he's really pushing educating the residential realtor to get up to speed and get knowledge in commercial, because their customer that they may sell a home for may own a business, may own some commercial real estate, and they can pick up on that business and help offer more value to the customer, right? So it goes to your point about multiple services to that one customer. And I think there's a huge, space for that, a huge need for it. Obviously, that doesn't mean you're just going to get paid if you don't have the value. You've got to know what you're doing. But I was always taught, because I was a commercial broker, by the way, in America, and we were taught to specialize, right? You can't be a jack of all trades. But I disbelieve it. I absolutely disbelieve it. So what are your thoughts on, expanding your expertise and skill set so you can offer multiple services to the same client?
If you're a salesman working for a company, they're always going to say that to you. I mean, I'd say it to my own sales staff if I had them. Like, you've got to be a specialist, this, that, because I want you doing one thing, laser focused. But from a business standpoint, as soon as you step into like the world of like, I need to create my own brand, you're initially going to think, okay, I need a menu of options here, right? So if someone's coming to this restaurant, this is my company. They need to have like the low ticket stuff. They need the starter menu, the main meal, they need dessert too, right? So it's kind of like, if I've got like real estate, like maybe there's going to be a do-it-yourself like training program, perhaps. Like, here's a webinar that you can come into, a seminar where, people can learn how to invest into real estate. So that's your like high margin, low ticket, kind of couple of $1,000s. Real estate training, for instance, how to invest in commercial property, for instance. And then you could have the actual projects themselves, right? So you can have like the syndicate options for the multifamily, and then you can go beyond the syndicate to like the actual full-blown development project. So you kind of have your tiers, right? And then again, so you're dealing with like information product, perhaps you're dealing with smaller real estate syndicates, then you're dealing with like full-on development deals. But then you could start looking into like other complementary areas. Like, so what else can surround like, commercial real estate? Maybe you start looking into other types of asset classes in the AIM market, right? That people might be interested in. Like, if you're looking at like safeguarding money, you're looking at land banking. If that's the goal, like what else could you bank your money in? And we start looking at gold, and you start looking at precious metals. So there's lots of different ways. So as a business owner, if you're a brand, if you're a company, you're thinking, I want to have one kind of focus. But the focus really isn't whether it's real estate. The focus is going to be like the benefit of the benefit. It's going to be
or the customer itself, right? The pool of customer, and what do they need, and how can you bring value? So, because I do gold, I've got a specialization in gold. I've done it for many years, and commercial real estate, capital markets, and fund. So all of that ties into that same customer. They buy gold, they own real estate, they own both commercial and residential, they own businesses, so they need capital funding for that. They need loans for real estate, commercial loans. So that's kind of 4 or 5 services I can help the single customer get, as well as some other things, right? So I think there's a lot of that.
Even if you kept it with real estate, you could start going into REITs, like real estate investment trusts, and you start looking at like indexes and that kind of stuff. Like, you can take it, it's like, the thing is like, you're just having to think you're thinking about your bottom line and what you can do to serve your customer best. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
It's like, how much can I make? How much can I, how well can I serve my customers so that they stay my customers? And I don't really want them going anywhere else. I want them staying with me. So I got the longevity of like my customer is my business. And also I want them happy too, right? So how can I do that? And if there's access to capital, if there's access to options, you've got to leverage them if you have the capacity. And you get to capacity by focusing on one thing initially. Like you do have to start somewhere, but
there's
eventually
there's a flip side to specifically on my customer base, and I think this is probably the biggest opportunity in the next 5-10 years. Is going back to these guys own most of the real estate in the business in this country. These customers also become a supply source for potential deals, meaning we become the guy that's doing the acquisition. We buy their real estate, and that can be done through creative financing, seller financing options, low to little to money down. Same with their businesses. So I think there's a huge opportunity to us to pick up those deals. So some pool of your clients are going to be your customers where you're selling them the asset, and others you're going to be buying the asset from them.
Well, that's happening now. There's a big shift happening right now.
Yeah, as the financiers, the investors in those deals in the fund.
That shift's happening now too.
Yeah.
Yeah, where like there's a lot of people who've done a lot of investing, who've built businesses, who are now looking to offload. So there's like you want to call it the aftermarket. It's like this is like where everyone's like you've had your fun selling to these people now, and they've had time building their businesses, and now you can look at the flip side, right? Like, okay, so what are all these company owners going to do now? They want to get rid of their companies. Their companies aren't doing well, and because it's a lot
of older, aren't they? Different stage in their life, right? Things change for them, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, even with me, and like I've gone on different directions. Like I have a software business now, like Distro List. Like I've switched into like the software business, and I've looked into different ways in which I can serve the market that I was initially going after. Right. So how am I going to get people to use my software? Is there going to be training behind it? Is there going to be literature? Like, is there going to be a book? I mean, I wrote a book to help as kind of like the instruction manual for the software. Like, so that's a complementary element to kind of help boost it. Then there's also like, how can I sort of joint venture my way into different sectors to kind of partner with companies that are complementary, where I can integrate my marketing with theirs to access their customer groups. So there's lots of different ways in which you can position a business. And I guess if you're asking like initially like how my journey, like where I started to learn to do all that kind of stuff, it really just came from when you do start by yourself and you recognize that once you are your own brand and but you have the skill sets of a salesperson or a sales business, but you haven't really created the products from the ground up. In my case, it was finding companies that had something to sell and me kind of agencying, like getting an agency agreement in place where I can now sell those things under my brand. You still have, you are your own business, but you are still just essentially a sales marketing element for someone else's product, right? Even though it's under your brand. So you end up having to look for all these different opportunities. To be honest, when I went into like developing my own, like when I went into the private equity world and I started building my own projects from the ground up, like it was in the parking sector, that was something different because that was really building something from the ground up. I had to do with all the legals when it comes to the contractors, permits, licensing, the whole nine yards, even from a security standpoint, making sure everything was regulated. That was the full thing. I didn't get the benefit there of just being able to pick up a bunch of paperwork from a provider and now kind of put my own stamp on it and promote it. This was really me having to create everything. So there was a lot of costs involved. And so that's really your more traditional business. And even when I did that one, it was like, okay, so how can I add more to this? Because I only have the capacity at this moment to sell this one thing, but my mind's constantly thinking, how do I increase this? How do I leverage this? How do I sell more? Because I can't, there's only so fast you can move in a development, for instance, buying like one building, one location to the next, because you're slow moving. It's kind of like trying to turn a U-boat down a stream. It's a slow process, especially when it comes to real estate. And then again, now with my software platform, this is something where I've had to build it again from the ground up. Like we've had developers in, I've got silos of developers based in different countries where I've created like software to do a certain thing, which is in our case, which is to help find creators and influencers and people as prospects for companies to be able to sell to, and not necessarily companies, like just different industries. Like we're actually playing and pivoting, and that's another thing that happens, by the way. Pivoting.
It takes on a life of its own.
Yeah, like, you have your idea of, like, people say, oh, you should have a business plan. You should think of your end user, think of the customer, the dream customer, your ideal customer, and then build the business around what it is that they want. It's easy to say that, but when you actually build a business, even though you have an ideal customer in mind, that customer will change, just because there's some things that happen in your business that you can't necessarily always create for that person. You have this idea, I'm going to create this product for that entity, and then you get to the point where it's like, I can't actually fund the completion of this project to actually deliver against that. I'm at what I would call MVP, minimal viable product, and it's not good enough for them. Shit. So I've got to find someone else that fits. And so you kind of have to pivot regardless. I mean, that happens all the time. So you've got to be like, and I think that's the good thing about it is if you've been hardened with sales, if you know how to sell something, it doesn't scare you so much. Yeah, because you know that you can pivot. You can dress this up differently to sell it to a different market. I mean, I'm doing it now. I initially built DistroList to be a provision for agencies who influencer marketing agencies to use this software to find influencers. That's what it was initially based on. And right now we've had to pivot. We're now looking at sort of the network marketing world, affiliate marketing, network marketing, because it will have a greater impact there. And I'm realizing this now, and it's actually a really good opportunity. It's a blue ocean, but
to help them as a recruitment tool, right?
I didn't initially think of it though. That's not what it was initially built for. This is the pivot. This is what's happened through me hitting barriers in the first plan. So that happened a lot.
Well, listen, all the best sports people in the world. Look at Mayweather. He's one of the best at adjusting in the moment, right? That's what it's all about. Business is no different, right? It's a lot of parallels there.
You've got to have thick skin to it, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And so when it comes to this podcast, so this is like kind of like been a bit of an intro just to like our relative backgrounds and stuff. But like this podcast going forward, what we're going to do with this, man, we're going to help people with the sales. We're going to talk about inside sales. We're going to talk about structuring businesses. We're going to talk about how to tap certain markets. I know I'm going to speak a lot about the network marketing and affiliate marketing world, because I've seen that's been growing exponentially over the past 6 years. I mean, it was growing before. You could put you could go to any job board like LinkedIn and just go to the job section and type in affiliate marketing. 6 years ago, you would have got like a handful of jobs pop up paying pretty basic salaries. Now you type in affiliate marketing manager or influencer marketing manager into LinkedIn now and see the thousands of opportunities that come up with the high base salaries. And I'm talking 100 grand, 80 grand, 100 grand.
Smart. They realize they need outside sales, and that's all it is. It's outside sales force tapping into an audience that's already been built, that's relevant to their product or service, right? It's
exactly. Yeah. And now
you moved online, in essence, is what it is.
I basically moved online. Yeah. But then with you, it's like, because this is what people, I'm always, even in my book, right, I'm always saying like, outside sales, build your external sales force, your boots on the ground sales force of people out there who have access to the customers that you already want. And that's really been my thing. But one thing I don't really talk about is the fact that you still need to sell them. You still have to sell them on the reason why they should work with you. There is sales at every stage. And the reason why I'm able to do it so well is not just because there's a framework in place, it's because I'm able to convince people. I can get them excited on the thing that I want them to sell. And I think that's where you're definitely masterful when it comes to like going through the whole. If there's one thing that you used to do, when we were working in the past together, that you'd have all these different. I'd say, Gio, you're a really good salesperson, but you've always got this new course, you've got this new training manual, you've got this new thing, because you're always self-educating. You're always going like the distance to learn more and to be better. Because selling never stops.
The point about pivoting, if you stand still, you're dead. If you think that you're the smartest guy in the room, you're done for. It's and that's why I go onto these sales floors, right? And you see these people that come into sales, been in it for 2 years, and they think they know it all, and they just, it blows my mind. I've been in it for 20, 25 years, and I'm still doing these courses, and I've got most sales books on the planet. I've read them all, and there's a point sometimes you've got to be careful where you start overloading your mind to get in the way. And it's like music, right? It's not that there's anything new there, right? There really isn't. It's human behavior, but it's you like, maybe this sales guy you like, or this sales guy, or this book, or this reference, and then there's all these different things that you bring together, and you make your music from it, right? And you got to be authentic to it. So some guys that I respect, I'm not going to pitch that way or sell that way because it's not authentic to who I am. I'm a big believer in listening to the client, understanding their situation, making sure there's even a problem in the first place. Then I can put, the solution in there. I'm not the other way around. I started as a product pusher because that's how we were taught. Get in there. This is what you got to sell, push it. When you get up to a higher level of selling, you become, you get this understanding of your job is to really help them convince themselves, like I said earlier. And you do that by both emotion and logic, but you do it by real skilled questioning to pull out emotion, to get them to start thinking about the cost of inaction. That's the most powerful thing in selling. And you do it in a sense where you're totally disattached to it, right? And then you're separating yourself from some guy that's, coming in there who's selling and he sounds manipulative and he sounds overbearing because he's thinking about himself. He's not thinking about what problem can I solve? And if there isn't a problem, I'm okay with that. Push it. I can't help everybody, and they're not the people I'm going to help. When I talk to people, I'll always frame it that way at the start of the conversation. Look, this conversation is about me as much figuring out what your situation is, what you're looking for specifically. You may not even know it, but part of this collaboration and conversation will hopefully uncover that together. And then if I can help bridge that gap, and then part of my job is to make sure that, if the gap's there, make it wider and wider and wider so that they need the solution. They got their hand up to say, oh shit, I realize I'm in this situation. I want to be there and I need your help to get there. That's when you get paid. And that's when you earn your money. And rightly so, right? And there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's an amazing thing to feel versus selling a product that you shouldn't have sold. And everybody's done it, but just to get a commission, right? Because that's what your company sells, and it doesn't fit everybody. So
yeah, and that was really well said. And I think if anyone's been in sales, they'll know that they've worked for a company, they've sold some dog shit, they didn't want to sell it again. It's soul destroying. You want to get out of there as fast as you can, but then you've got rent to pay, you've got bills to pay. You're like, well, let me see if I can make find other. It happens to the best of us. But yeah, so with regards to your journey right now, because I think what we're going to do with this podcast, I think will be really cool is if we document what our journey is right now. So I'm having my first pivot with my software brand, DistroList, where we've shifted away from the agency model. We've even shifted away from the e-commerce, like hitting up e-commerce companies to use our platform too, because it's bloody water there. There's a lot of companies out already hitting those businesses up. So we're really going, it's like the sale becomes feature benefit. And it's like, who runs out of feature benefits first, our software platform or the next one? It's not really the best kind of sales position to be in. I always like to think I want a strategic advantage. And if I don't have one there, I need to shift, so I'm now looking at other markets where I believe, there hasn't been enough focus. And so now I'm starting to look at, like I said, the affiliate marketing, and most importantly, I'm heavy press for network marketing. I think that the network marketing businesses out there, AKA MLMs, the likes of Herbalife, doTERRA and the various others, like they're massive companies, big organizations, and they've been growing exponentially. They had a huge jump throughout COVID. Now they've kind of had a dip again. They've kind of corrected it, almost like the stock market correction. But the companies are still growing and they're still recruiting. I mean, the amount of people that are involved in the world of network marketing who are, they have good products. They're trying to promote them, but then they're kind of left in the wind, right? There's not enough support there. They end up buying training programs. They talk about like hitting up their own personal contacts. They're talking about like burning their relationships.
I've been involved in 4 or 5 different MLMs, and I actually really love the business model.
It's a great business model.
Yeah, I was 18 when I first went to a meeting in the UK. One of my best friend's parents, the dad was a doctor, and they were in FLP. You check this company out, one of the oldest ones, right? Forever Living product, aloe juice and all this stuff, right?
Okay.
And I went in there and I saw this comp plan, I saw the car, and I was in like a hotel boardroom. And I was mesmerized by it and I loved it. Did nothing with it because that's part of it, right? And then I had to go and pitch my family, and so there's a few different things to it. And then got to move to the States after, and I got into a few other ones. ACN was one. I had a video. Get this, the video phone, right? It was way before its time. Now it's like, but then there's a video phone. Who's going to use a video phone? Like, this is ridiculous. And they were selling other people's products as well on top of that. Anyway, my point is, after 2 or 3 failed attempts, right?
And just go.
You've burnt your market. You've burnt your market.
But there's a benefit. The reason why people get like drawn into it is because there is no barrier to entry. You get to represent a product without having to negotiate hard.
It's too low.
Well, it's too low. I think that an argument could be made there for sure. Like when I would, as a salesperson, to go and find a business to get comms, like if I contacted a property developer, I'd have to prove to that individual, that owner, why they should be paying me 20% or whatever percentage I was going after, because I could deliver on the investors or the buyers or whatever. So I had to negotiate my position and get my commission plan in play. And then once I got it, I had to, I usually had like a window of time to be able to execute, to drive in sales for me to actually, hold that agreement. But that was it. You really have to push for it. So I had to qualify myself, my experience, my ability, my knowledge of the market. Whereas with these network marketing businesses, you are able to get behind a brand and a full suite of products without really having to go through the kind of job interview. You have the full weight of the company's marketing infrastructure behind you. You've got all of their information, their project material, their marketing collateral, the whole 9 yards. And it's all been given to you. Normally, a lot of times you have to pay a little bit to have like these wholesale setup fees, but they pay, as an individual, you can access it very quickly through purchasing. And so now you have this company brand that you can now essentially work for yourself. So you've got 2 jobs. You can either go and sell the products directly, and there are plenty of really innovative ways you can do that. Again, combining complementary products to have a unique offer that's different from everybody else. So you're not just selling the same thing everybody else is selling. So that's direct selling. And then there's also the recruitment element, which is building your downline of people. Yeah. And I feel like, well, I know this industry. I know the world of like connecting businesses with, connecting the supply side with the sales side. So I'm like, I'm going to take this knowledge that I have, this platform that I've created, and I'm going to kind of direct it put it in this direction, because I think a lot of the people there could benefit from it. And so that's really where I'm going with that.
Yeah, no, it's a great industry. Great industry.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people. It's a big market too. And then equally, you on your side, you're not doing the same thing. Essentially, you're in a different sphere. You're in the gold sphere, the alternative investment market. You're selling at the moment gold. I believe you're working for a brand, but
for a brand, physical product. We're trying to do things differently in the market. We're changing the way that the interaction happens with the customer. These gold companies are typically, 80s boiler room style, which never sat well with me. And
just to explain what an 80s boiler room is to the people who don't know what that is, it actually means
men on chairs, shouting at customers to buy.
Forcing people to buy. Listen, I grew up with those as well.
Most people in sales, if you've been in that, 15 years plus, you've worked in those environments, and they were fun when you were young, and but now the consumer, they're probably at the lowest level when it comes to trusting salespeople. It goes back to my point about really being consultative, right? That you differentiate yourself straight away from somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. But in this industry specifically, it's still, very much an 80s way of selling. And I believe, especially when you're talking about helping people with their life savings and getting out of paper assets into physical assets, it's important for them to see you and get to know you. So I'm just structuring it. We're doing a lot of these video calls. We're really leaning on educating people on what gold does, why people buy it, how they can buy it, and it's a physical product, right? So there's that. But again, the part moving forward is collaborating my experiences from commercial real estate to, I've got this idea of putting commercial real estate fixed annuities, okay, which is an insurance license. And again, offers the same defense against market corrections with income. And I know there's some paper asset to that, but it's very strong because it's backed by, these annuities. Again, fixed annuities is all you need is an insurance license to sell it. You don't need a securities license. That's for a variable. So, the type of customer that's going to buy gold, say, if they got $1 million, well, maybe they don't want to put $1 million into gold, but they'll put 300,000, and maybe they'll put 500,000 into New York Life contract, right? Because of the security and stuff behind it. And then there's some extra money there for a real estate deal. So it's the same customer with the same needs, same concern, but you're giving some diversity in their portfolio and security at a time in their life they need it. So that's going to be the push
And is
moving
that
forward.
annuity? Sorry, is that annuity that you're referring to? Are we talking about like the life insurance style where it's basically insured
it's a
money
life insurance contract, right? A fixed annuity would offer a small return on the market. Let's say the market performs at 16%. You might only get 4%. It's really an inflationary hedge, and then it has life income for life in it, I believe.
And the money's insured.
No downside, right? So if the market crashes, you're protected in the contract. The variable is tied to the market performance. If the market goes bad, well, then you're screwed. But if you get 15% in the market, you make more money. So there's a trade-off right there. But I think that from what I've learned, and I follow some guys that are really big in annuities, and the fixed annuity, it can be really powerful, in my opinion, for those type of customers. Somebody in their 60s, they get sold a lot of these variable annuities by financial advisors. There's big commissions on the front end of these things, right? And is that really right for somebody going into retirement? Okay, when they're 40, maybe they can take more risk. But that's why, you go back and you see these people. I think, the average loss in 2008 in those types of accounts was somewhere, I read this, I forget the quote, the resource, but somewhere in the region of 50%, right? So you lose 50% in the markets when you're 65, you're going to make 100% just to break even.
Yeah.
Not a good place to be, is it? Right. So that's the problem that I want to fix. That's an experience I want to take away from people. They shouldn't have to have it, so that's part of the mission long term. And that's not here today. I mean, all I focus on is, precious metals. I'm on the board of a real estate advisory, so I still do some commercial real estate stuff, as well. But primarily it's the metals. But we're building that out over time,
Yeah. So we're going to follow you on your journey. So these conversations are going to be a mix between what I'm doing with the software, but equally what you're doing on your business journey and how you're kind of working with this brand right now to build out this plan that you have, this master plan of yours to serve your customer in the way that you want to serve them.
Well, the other part is tied into your distribution network and see how can we scale this globally? How can we do this same thing in the UK through, distribution channels? Can we train an army of people that can go out there and solve this problem in Australia? You know what I mean? So that's going to be the focus. It's not just do it the traditional way. It's going to be disrupt that traditional way. So that's where we want to see if we can leverage this. And then can multi-level marketing be tied into all of this? Because that's the other part to it all. Right, because it's very easy. Remember, there's PHP, right? We talked about these guys, and I was in that and had to get an insurance license to be in it. There's not many multi-level marketing firms that you need to get a license in, but it's a very easy license to get. So, with the gold, with the real estate, with this, can we do this? Can we scale this on a multi-level marketing platform?
That's potentially. I mean, the question is like, how would we want to penetrate? If that's the direction, if we want to look at like building a distribution network, it's like, okay, so how do we want to reach the end user? Do we want to reach that person through, I like to say people, places, or things. We want to pick one, right? So if we were doing people, multi-level might be good because now we're kind of backdooring into people's homes by working with the people who could recruit other people who essentially have direct contact with a potential buyer, right? Someone who is in that age range, who's looking to park their money somewhere, who's considering these options. So you can actually access the market through that. So the recruitment tool is almost like the mechanism to penetrate, but then everyone's licensed or is working towards a license to be able to then sell the asset. And of course, the asset is going to be coming from HQ. So you're going to have the full breadth of all the whatever the offering is, like as far as the annuity is concerned, as far as the licensing, as far as like legalities, that's all going to be done. That could be done in that way. But then the other way, which I think might be even a more direct way, would be through the places, essentially through other businesses. So companies, there are a billion. I mean, I say that number flippantly, but like there are millions and millions of like boutique, investment houses dotted around the world. And they're everywhere. Okay. And they're a lot of them are not really licensed investment houses. A lot of them are they're just brochure websites, and all they're doing is I like to call them like financial marketing companies. All they do is they kind of do what I initially said. They'll find property developers, they'll find businesses, they'll agree a commission or some kind of remuneration agreement where they'll get paid to sell a certain thing. And so they'll dress their little, their business up as XYZ investments in wherever the hell they are. Could be like Cyprus, could be London, could be France, could be anywhere. And they'll be but they have access to the audience that you're looking for. They would be perfectly positioned for taking on a product that's far more structured, that's regulated or operates within a regulated market where they can actually sell something that's better, frankly, to their target buyers. And if there's a way that they can earn on the back of it, this would be an option. So I'd say look at the places, look at, and they already have a pre-cultivated list of potential buyers. So that we might look at like how we could build that out. That could be the direction.
Another layer, and I would think that these customers have probably already got it through the network of family offices, right? These guys are high level.
Yeah.
These guys, they're well structured in their portfolios, but it's like a lower level of family office, right?
Yeah, these basically are. They operate. I mean, if you ask them, a lot of them will dub themselves family office. They'll call themselves that. And you'd be surprised because outside of the US, regulation is nowhere near as strict when it comes to those things. I mean, there is like FATCA, there's like where money comes from rules in place, but when it comes to like calling your business something, a lot of companies out there will dub themselves up as family offices very easily without having to worry about any regulatory oversight. I mean, there's plenty of them like will operate under a tier 3 financial services, kind of what would be considered tier 3 financial services in the US, and they're just operating at that level, like providing some kind of capex or capital exchange service in Europe, where that wouldn't have been even possible in the US without some serious heavy licensing and qualification process. So like there's options, and we'll absolutely look at that, as we're on this kind of journey together where people can kind of follow, and we'll pivot, we'll figure out what's working, what's not.
It's a must.
Yeah, I mean, that's really I can't. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, to actually document.
Well, because I think there's a lot of my thing has been when I've been thinking about, okay, I've got to take this jump into building more content, and I've been messing around with Instagram, messing around with various different things. And for me, there's always this fear. I don't want to get in there and feel like I'm trying to promote myself as some guru. And what I relate to is exactly that, just authenticity. Yeah. We're in the struggle together. And that's really what we're going to focus on as well, is not, I mean, there's obviously people who are going to learn from things that we've got in terms of where we're at in our careers, the skill set that we have, the knowledge that we have. Like I said at the start, there's always people behind you, and that's great. And there's always people in front of you. But it's about understanding we're in that daily grind with everybody, right? We're in that growth mindset. We're in that journey mindset, and sharing the day to day is super powerful. And that's the stuff that attracts me when I'm on social media watching. I love watching people's, what are they doing in the day? What's the journey? Not them see the real Ferrari, in Malibu, you know what I mean? On the yacht. That's bullshit.
See, that's it. I mean, exactly. I mean, we're aligned, and that's why we're doing this. Exact same motivation. Like, I can sit here and have 100 conversations with business owners, which I have been doing on this podcast. Like up until this point, it's been like, let me speak to early stage owner and founders. One of the things I've been saying was like, I don't want to speak to like the people who've already made it, who are going to attribute their success to some 4-hour work week. I want to speak to the people who are in the mud, right? Who are in the bloody mud right now, who are saying, look, man, this was the plan and we had to change because we created this thing for this market, and the law, there was some regulatory oversight, and we had to completely pivot. Those are the kind of conversations I was looking for. And even then, as a podcast, it's been kind of difficult to have those conversations because a lot of business owners don't want to actually be as upfront about it. They want to come across as like, oh, they're doing everything right because they're like bee's knees when it comes to business. And that's why I think I've actually come back a little bit. So, you know what? Instead of trying to find these stories elsewhere, let me just go through my own story. Let me partner with someone I know who's who can join this channel, who's going to be on the same sort of, we're at the same kind of level right now. We're at these sort of early stage elements of our business, and we're going to now build it. And we're going to kind of muddle through. And so we can actually tell the truth. We can give people the real, you know?
Yeah, and I think what could be real cool if we, you know, along the way is chuck in some challenges, get people involved in, you know, some things to, okay, how do we come up with an idea, you know, in a conversation and turn it into cash through the resources that we have and the experiences that we've been through, because that's going to be super cool. We can challenge people to do it. We can do some shit ourselves, but you know, it's something powerful. I tell new sales guys coming in who never sold, there's always a level of, does this work, right? You and I can go into any new business tomorrow, and we know you can give us a name and we can turn that into a whole car, you know, a real money in your hand, right? You know, when we started, we'd get a list of investors. I'd get 50 pages of a printout, names along the shit. I'd have a ruler and a pencil. Yeah. I would cold call these people, and I'd turn it into 20, 30, 40, 50 grand a month commissions. And it blew my mind.
Absolutely. I remember there was one computer in the office. We're only allowed to use that for emails. So like we would be sitting at the table. There was just a phone on the table, and it was like sheets of paper, and we like, just call these leads.
Once you've done it though, the power is like, I remember an email lead, right? An email lead, when it first shifted from that to actually somebody had clicked and gone on a landing page, they'd seen the bullet points of the investment, you know, parking, whatever the investment was. And then they said, yes, please call me. It was like unbelievable. Now that's like people moan about these leads now.
I know, but I remember with
people email leads.
I remember people people used to complain about leads, right? And those are the gold standard leads. And I remember first starting out in business, people would have those reams of paper, and they'd actually throw them away. They'd go through their list, they'd call them up, and everyone would be like, hell no, I'm not interested or whatever. And they'd throw their little list away. And I remember being so new to this company one time. This is an interesting story. I wasn't able to get the gold leads. And I was just kind of given this like fresh set of like paid for leads, where they were just basically like yellow pages leads. They were just like, you know, they'll just buy data in. So what I ended up doing was at the end of the day, I'd look for all of in all the trash cans. I'd find all the papers that people had thrown away, because I know they'd already been hit up. So they're not technically cold, even though they said no. They've been hit up once or twice. So we're popping back up.
A warm call there goes from a cold to a warm call. Different animal.
Exactly. So I'd call up saying, hey, I know you spoke to so-and-so last week, and they must have spoken to you about this. Let me talk to you about, and I'd basically trying to spin the sell my way in. But it was a way more effective way, because it'd been touched by the company a few times. And so I ended up turning those into my goldies. I was never even interested in the incoming ones. I remember that like there's so many different like tactics and strategies. When it comes
it's funny you say that, because creativity and perspective is everything. That reminds me of a story that, and I know you hear this a lot with a lot of these, you know, the lifers in sales, but most of us, I know in the UK at least, we started door to door, right? Well, we did some version of the door to door. And I worked for, I want to say, I forget the name. We got bought out by Virgin, right? We were selling internet, TV, you know, like Sky TV, internet, and phone service, right? And we'd go door to door. It was Slough. The head office was in Slough. If anyone knows Slough, if they've watched The Office, it's a shithole. Excuse me if you live in
it's a shithole.
A lot of council estates, right? And I figured out somehow, we used to get a list of names in that you know, council estate, and then you'd get the ones that actually who had the service before didn't pay the bill, and they'd always be on the sheet, and we were told to ignore them. And I thought, hold on a minute. And I spent some time in the council estate. I lived on one growing up, you know, when I was a bit younger. And what I realised, and I thought, you know what?
And council estate is projects, by the way.
Yeah, projects for the Americans, They're not married, most of these people. And one of the things that is said is, to, you know, a criteria of how to open a new account is, or what wouldn't allow it is, if let's say Mary Smith is in there and she's married to John Smith, but the bill was in her name, regardless, you couldn't reopen an account there. But if Mary Smith was, you know, partnered with John Davidson, and they weren't married, you could effectively, on that address, if there was still an outstanding bill, open a new account. So here's what I figured out. And I started crushing. I would knock on the door, or I'd go straight to the ones that we were told not to. I'd knock on the door and I'd say, listen, Mary, look, I'm not here. I'm here from, you know, Virgin Atlantic, whatever. Not Atlantic, Virgin Cable, whatever it was.
Virgin Media.
Virgin Media, that's it.
Yeah.
And I would say, listen, I'm not here to collect the bill at all, but I just had a quick question. Do you mind if you could, if there was a way that you could get your Sky turned back on, would you be, opposed to having a conversation around that? Right? And this was untrained back in the day, right? I didn't know why I was good at that, and that's how I'd phrase it. Even that way, I'd be real, like, neutral with the language. And they'd say, no. Well, I said, well, look, if you've got 5 minutes, I'd come on in. I'd get in there. I said, look, is there anyone in the household over 18 with a different name? And there might be the son or whatever. And then we just sign them up in a different name. Nothing illegal with it. And whether they kept it on after 3 months, 6 months, that wasn't really your problem.
You signed them up.
In, and I just started crushing it. And I was like, it was such a cool find. But again, it teaches, goes back to your point about one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? So you've got to be creative. You've got to try and look at things from a different perspective. And you can carve out your little, your fairway, so to speak. You can figure it out, find your angle. And that was a good, it was a good lesson learned there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, look, let's we're at the hour mark. So I think you and I could just keep swapping stories, and I think what we should do is save some for like the next podcast. And we're on our journey. You're building your business out. I'm building mine. People are going to definitely learn from the trials and tribulations and challenges that we're going to face just going through. And I'm going to be very open about the stuff that I'm faced with. I have a stuff. Yeah. There's a ton of stuff. Business is fluid. It's riddled with holes, and there's plenty of ways to lose a lot of money. And there's plenty of ways to make a ton of money. And I've been on this journey before, so I know what I can do. I know how to build something, and I'm going to share those strategies with people. And of course, I know you're going to do the same with yours. And I think we're going to meet in the middle as well. I think there's going to be a way in which we can utilize distribution networks to sell what you're selling. And we're going to find a way in which we can sort of turbo boost that. I'm going to share with you some of my experience with how to structure your own business, because you're currently working for a brand. Yeah. And I know you have ambitions to like kind of grow beyond that and have all these, you have your own master plan, and see how we can kind of set that up and incorporate that. And we're going to share it. We're going to, people can like learn, they can kind of be like the fly on the wall, can learn from what we're doing, and can even join us, can get engaged with what we're doing. There's going to be an opportunity there too. So look, I guess until next time then.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Let's do it.